Welcome back for another video. Like many of you, I've been tinkering with my team lots over the last week or so, and I've made 8 changes in total, and a formation change, so we're back with an update to talk through all the changes and why. I've even ended up with 0.5 mil on the bank in this new setup. Apologies in advance to the 5% of channel viewers that aren't men, but listen up gents. Today's video is brought to you by manscaped.com. I used to wet shave years ago, and then I bought a cheap shaver which absolutely sucked. After I got my hands on Manscaped's beard trimmer, I genuinely haven't looked back. More essential than Palmer when he was 5 mil. It's got 20 different cutting hair lengths, it's waterproof, cordless and rechargeable. I'm careful with who I collaborate with, and they kindly sent me the trimmer well in advance to try for myself, and you have my word. They're doing a deal exclusively for viewers here. If you go to manscaped.com and use the code FPLfocal, you get 20% off, and on top of that you get shipping wherever you are in the world completely free. Treat yourself or get it as a gift. Link and code are both below to take advantage. Let's get stuck into the team. Starting off in goal with an immediate change, it's Fleckham. The problem I've got with the Forest keepers is who's actually first choice, Sells or Miguel. Depending on who you ask, you'll get a different answer, and it could be the case that Sells is first choice, but as soon as he has a howler then Miguel comes in, and the same could apply for Henderson and Johnston. So I've gone back to basics of a 4.5 mil and a 4 mil combo that won't be a problem down the line. The trade-off is some poor fixtures in the opening 5, but if I can avoid the early wildcard, then Brentford's fixtures are great from Gameweek 6 to Gameweek 14. It could be hard to save the wildcard for that long, though I've set myself up with a team that has the aim to roll more than 2 transfers here, which is also going to help in saving the wildcard if a few problems arise. To help avoid chopping and changing too much, I've lumped more money into defence now. The back 3 is Vardy, Mykolenko and Trent. Despite the question marks about the new coach and the new system, I struggle to imagine Trent not doing well in these opening fixtures: Ipswich, Brentford, Man United, Forest, Bournemouth and Wolves. Another way of putting it is, if we look at the 4.5 mil defenders instead, and move that money into midfield or attack, there's no mids for 7 mil or forwards for 7 mil that I expect to score more than Trent, in my opinion anyway. Eze is the popular 7 mil mid, but I don't see it happening given Liverpool are a far better team and they've got better fixtures, and Trent in many ways is a midfielder that gets clean sheet points based on his creative underlying numbers. Best defender in the game for minutes per expected goal involvement last season, second the year before, first the year before that. Have you got Trent in your team, or do you think he's too expensive? Liverpool's first proper pre-season fixture was against Real Betis, which ended in a 1-0 win. The pre-season form players and analysis videos are going to be back very soon, so hit subscribe so you don't miss that, the easiest way to track all 20 teams and what's going on. Vardy remains in the team with the intention of being another position that doesn't need to change for a while. I'm expecting him to have a really good season. He's got an eye for goal and lots of clean sheet potential in the opening game weeks. I missed out on his points in that comparable fixture run last season right at the end when he got 1 goal 1 assist against Luton. A couple of game weeks later a goal and a clean sheet against Forest, and then the next week an assist against Wolves, and the week after that a brace and a clean sheet against Fulham. Same point in the 6 mil midfielders and forwards, there's none leaping out that you expect to score high for 6 mil. There's a perfect rotation with Mykolenko on the bench, and they'll take it in turns swapping into that back 3 with Vardy and Trent. Again with the intention to hopefully roll more than 2 transfers, and my gut feeling is in practice most of us aren't going to be in a position where you have more than 3 transfers banked. There's a ton of potential from Everton's long-term fixtures as well, combined with the fact that only Arsenal kept more clean sheets last campaign. It's just Game Week 2, 4 and 7 that need managing when they're away to Spurs, Villa and Newcastle, which the bench takes care of. I'm really surprised they didn't price them at 5 mil like the centre backs. I will be keeping an eye on the transfer market just in case they sign another left back, but failing that, he's an obvious pick for me at 4.5 mil. Onto the midfield 5, which is Fernandes, Saka, Hudson-Odoi, Salah and Gordon. I've been going back and forth between the Salah and Haaland draft, and I can't quite fit a Haaland draft together that I think looks better. The 2.5 mil really does go a long way. For example, Trent, Salah and Havertz, or you could go a 4.5 mil defender, an 8.5 mil midfielder like Odegaard and then Haaland. Or another way of doing it is a 6 mil defender and Eze and then Haaland. Although Slot comes in with a new system, he would have been very carefully selected in terms of his tactics that are going to fit the existing player's mould and some similarities to Klopp's style. One piece of news that's not so favourable is Liverpool going to be without the likes of Trent, Van Dijk, Gakpo, Gomez, Luis Diaz, Alisson and Darwin for the US pre-season tour, following their international commitments over the summer. So a lot of players rejoining the squad late with no game time under Slot. Szoboszlai played as a number 10 in that Real Betis game. He's going to be much more of a goal threat this season I think, and he's only 6.5 mil and he scored in that game. Salah got the assist. They've priced Salah and Haaland brilliantly. You really can make compelling cases for and against both players. In fact, you can make a compelling case for going with both of them or even neither. What an interesting season we've got ahead of us. Palmer's the most notable player who's dropped out since the first draft, allowing for Trent and Bruno in a nutshell. So let's talk about the Bruno pick, who has joined the team. I'm finding it pretty impossible to separate him and Ødegaard for the same price, even though underlying numbers the last couple of seasons are very comparable. Arsenal the better team right now, but Bruno's on penalties, and in my case I do have Havertz, so it's avoiding a triple up. If Man United can get a defensive mid signing over the line, which I fully expect, there's massive potential for Bruno to be freed up completely. He's a bonus point magnet, and he's got Fulham, Brighton and Southampton in his opening 4 games. Man United were quite unlucky with the sheer number of injuries last season. They're back at full strength and they are making signings, so I think he's a really solid pick for 8.5 mil. So the other big hitter is Saka. It's a tough choice who to drop between Saka and Palmer here. As I say, I've got 0.5 mil on the bank, so I can literally afford Palmer. They're very close, and for me it boiled down to a couple of things. We know exactly what we're going to get with Saka and Arsenal. He's had several good seasons under his belt, and Arsenal should compete for the title. For what it's worth, I don't see Palmer's 23-24 season as a fluke. He's an unbelievable player, but it was his first full season, and we're not completely sure what Chelsea are going to look like under new management. Maresca's obviously going to build the entire team around him like Pochettino did. And lastly, the 0.5 mil could come in very handy, so if I left it banked, with nowhere obvious leaping out to spend it. Another option I had here was Foden over Saka, and then use that 1 mil in the bank to move Hudson-Odoi to 6.5 mil midfielder, or move one of the 4.5 mil defenders to Pedro Porro, who has just scored in pre-season. Saka had a superior non-penalty expected goal involvement to Palmer last season, and Foden as well. Only Haaland and Salah had higher. Hudson-Odoi joins the team. I initially used that 0.5 mil to have Wood up top and then Winks on the bench for 4.5 mil in a 3-4-3 instead. If you watched the video we did rating YouTuber teams, we did Mark Southern's team, who's a lifelong Forest fan, and he made an interesting comment on Wood. He's saying that he expects Awani to start in Gameweek 2 for the pace on transition against Southampton. Dependent on his fitness of course, as he's not been involved in pre-season. So I'm leaning on the advice from someone who knows way more about Forest than me here. Nuno's been lining up with Hudson-Odoi and Gibbs-White either side of Wood in some pre-season games, and he seems to favour Hudson-Odoi over Elanga. Only 5.5 mil, and he's got a goal and 2 assists in pre-season already, albeit against Millwall and Chesterfield. In case you didn't know, I made an FPL website that's completely free, and it's got a bunch of FPL tools like Fixture Ticker. The URL is fpl.page, and in the Fixture Ticker widget, you can sort by difficulty over gaming ranges, and Forest are third on the ticker for fixture difficulty over the opening 8 game weeks. By the way, I've also been putting in some serious hours behind the scenes to make a free app version, which is coming very soon before Gameweek 1. It's the first time I've showed a sneak preview anywhere here. It's got no ads or a paid version, so it's a bit of a money sink, but it is a passion project for me. It's going to be so sick, I'll let you know when it's out. Wrapping up the midfield of Gordon, who's remained in the team. I can see him living up to the 7.5 mil price tag and then some. I like to start with as many players with home fixtures as possible, and he ticks that box as well, plus against a newly promoted side. I'm expecting Newcastle to put a few past them in Gameweek 1. Which brings me to the front 2, and it's a double up of Isak alongside Havertz. So Havertz joins the team, and I'm amazed by how low his ownership is at 14%. He's the cheapest of the trio of Saka and Ødegaard, and he was instrumental last season once he got going, and the physical presence up top exactly what Arsenal were missing when Jesus led the line. He was the number 1 player that stood to gain the most extra bonus points last season with an additional 12 had the new BPS rules been in place. Though he is now forward, so he can't get clean sheet points and he gets a point less per goal. Quite an explosive player though. From Gameweek 25, there were 6 occasions in that remaining 14 game weeks where he put up multiple attacking returns in one game. I think he genuinely has a chance of matching or even outscoring Watkins this season, who's the other notable player that's dropped out. On the bench I've got Valdemarsson, the backup to Flecken, and then Anderson, Barco and Stewart. I mentioned the Mykolenko rotation earlier. Using Scout's fixture ticker tool you can do a lot more. You can sort by attack, defence, overall, and you can also sort by rotation, which brought me to the Mykolenko and Anderson rotation. You get a run of games which are Brighton home, West Ham home, Bournemouth home, Leicester away, Palace home, Newcastle home and then Ipswich away. So the plan is simple, start Vardy on Trent every week and then swap that third defender around. Barco also joins the team, who's 4 mil. He's actually even been taking some corners in pre-season. Highly rated youngster, and he could be in line for a run of starts in left wing back while Estupinan's sidelined. 0.5 mil on the bank as well with this team. Nowhere immediately obvious to spend it, but if you've got any ideas leave a comment below. Thanks for watching, hit subscribe for more great FPL content to come right here. See you soon for the next one.